Welcome back to the Please Suck Less podcast. So I did better this time. It's not a month. It's only been a couple of weeks. So I'm back on where I wanted to be. So I want to talk about a couple of things, jotted down some notes so I wouldn't lose my train of thought. But in the fire service, everything comes down to training. So I want to touch a little bit about the types of training that we do in the fire service and why they're essential and why we need to understand in general why we train on the things that we train on. So the first thing that I want to talk about, and I'm sure you've heard this before, is that the high frequency, high risk, high frequency, high risk, high frequency type calls that we run, and then how we should be training for those. So starting first with the high risk, low frequency, those are the calls that they do have a lot of risk that goes with them, but they don't happen that often. But that doesn't mean that you don't train for them. You just don't focus all your training on them. We see a lot of this in the fire service with our special operations, where I know in the fire services that I've been around and the people that I've talked to, people that are in special operations concentrate a lot on those low frequency calls like trench collapse, high angle rescue, large hazmat scale incidents. It's important for those folks that are specialized in that to be proficient at doing that. But what I have found is that they train so hard in those low frequency calls that when it comes time for those high frequency calls that we'll talk about here in a second, they kind of suck at doing the job. If a trench collapses or we have a large hazmat incident or people are dangling from the side of a building and need rope, those are the people that you want. But in the fire service, the expectation is that we are jack of all trades and that we are supposed to be masters of those trades that we are supposedly trained in. So it's important that we understand both the high frequency and the low frequency type calls. So when we talk about those low frequency calls, like I said, hazmat call, large scale hazmat calls, rope rescue, overland rescue, trench collapse, things like that, confined space, all that stuff's important, but we cannot lose we can't lose track of the calls that we run most of the time, which are our high risk, high frequency calls, which are like your house fires, car accidents, EMS calls, things like that. It's vitally important that we train and we are just masters of that to the point where we're not thinking about what we're doing. We're just doing it. We have to be that good. So what we can take away from this is that no matter what we do in the fire service, there's always risk. So that's why we talk about the high risk. Everything we do has risk. Burning buildings, car accidents, EMS runs, things like that. They all have their degree of high risk. But because we do those more often, those are our high frequency calls. We need to continually train on those particular type of calls so we're proficient at our skills. We'll talk a little bit about public expectations here in a few minutes, a little later on in this podcast. But as far as the special operations stuff, people that are immersed in special operations, they need to train for those low frequency calls. So when they do happen, they are the masters of what that particular incident is and how to mitigate that situation. But if you throw all your eggs in that particular basket of those low frequency calls and you don't train for the high frequency calls that we run all the time, you're going to suck at doing your job. You're going to burn buildings to the ground. You're going to have lacking EMS skills, whether we like it or not. It's 80 to 85% of what we do. Those car accidents that we run, if you're not paying attention to what's going on the roads, you're going to hurt yourself. So the people that are in the special operations, you need to train for everything. The people that aren't in special operations, you need to have a good working knowledge of those low frequency calls. You need to know what your role is on those hazmat calls, on those high angle rescue calls, overland rescue, trench rescue, things like that. So it's important that we look at this whole big picture, that we understand the training and what we're expected to do when the call comes in. But we need to make sure that we are training for those high frequency, high risk calls. So the day-to-day operations that we do, we operate with precision on the fire ground. It doesn't matter if you're career volunteer, you should be training for that type of stuff all the time, not saying that you neglect those low frequency calls. So enough beating that dead horse. So train For the calls that you're going to run a majority of the time, make sure that you are proficient, make sure that you are experts in that area, and then also train on those low frequency calls to make sure you know your role, whether you're on the special operations end of it or you're just on regular dispatch. You're there to support those special operations. So make sure you know what you're doing. Some of the notes that I took: equipment and apparatus purchasing, switching gears a little bit. I've always subscribed to the theory that if you're going to purchase new equipment, if you're going to even think about purchasing new apparatus, a large type of purchase, you need to enlist the help of the people that are closest to the issues. That means that these chief officers, these leaders, these high ranking leaders in the organization should not be the one making the decision on the apparatus that we're buying. You have to have the input from the people that are riding the apparatus, that are using the hand tools, making sure that we're getting what their needs are. It makes no sense for fire chiefs to say we're going to buy these fire engines when they haven't ridden a fire engine in 10, 15 years. The end user is the person that has the most to gain and the most to lose based on what is being purchased. Now, at the end of the day, the person that holds the purse strings obviously is going to make the final decision, but they have to have that input of the end user, the person that's closest to the issue, the officers, the firefighters, the technicians or drivers of that apparatus. You need to get their input to find out what is the best piece of apparatus that we need. What is the size of the apparatus we need? Motor configuration, pump configuration, hose line configuration, all those things, water capacity, all of those things affect the end user. And in order for them to be successful, you have to have their input. Not only that, you're going to get better buy-in when you buy that apparatus, knowing that it came from them. I had a project that I was put in my lap. I was very happy to do it. We had the opportunity. We were buying new fire engines to purchase new nozzles. I immediately went out and grabbed a handful of captains as well as firefighters and drivers to put on this committee and said, here, guys, I need you to tell me, because you're riding the apparatus, you're pulling the hose lines, you have the nozzles in your hands, you're fighting the fire. Tell me what you want. I will facilitate the meetings. I will sign your overtime. But at the end of the day, I need the report from you guys to tell me what was the best thing to buy. And at the end of the day, they knocked it out of the park. Those guys picked the best hose lines, the best nozzles that worked for the apparatus that we were buying. But to this day, I haven't heard any complaints. I felt that was truly successful because they picked what they needed. They were all in on it. And it was an easier sell to the rest of the organization because the rest of the firefighters and officers that are on the front lines knew that this equipment was picked by people that are their peers, basically. So, something to think about. Same thing with apparatus. These guys are riding around in it. Talk to the people in the apparatus. Make a committee if you have to. I know a lot of people don't like the committees, but make that committee. Put people that are closest to the issue to help pick the apparatus, moving the department forward. You're going to get buy-in. It's going to boost morale. Trust me. Finally, let's talk a little bit about what is the expectation of the public when it comes to career and volunteer services. Whether you have a combination system of career and volunteers working side by side, full career department, or a full volunteer department, what is the expectation of the citizens? And I did a little bit of research just to make sure that what was in my mind was actually kind of out there on the interwebs. First and foremost, the public expects when 911 is called a rapid and effective response. What does that mean? In combination departments and in career departments, you have career people that are assigned to the stations. When the call comes in, that first piece of apparatus is going to hit the street. If a second piece of apparatus is due, you may have volunteers coming from home to get the second piece of apparatus out, or you may have volunteers in the firehouse that are mingling in on the first piece out the door. But the bottom line is rapid response. They call 911. They need you to have a rapid response. So that's something that you need to think about. It gets a little tricky in all volunteer organizations in the middle of the night. If you don't have people that are sleeping at the firehouse, they have to get to the firehouse to get the apparatus on the street. We've solved a little bit of that in my volunteer department. We have emergency vehicles that we can take home, whether the chiefs have their chief's cars or a duty car. For those first responder calls, the calls that come in, they respond directly to the scene, especially if it's an emergency medical call, and they can start initiating care right away. It's been pretty successful. When it comes to fire calls, you get the apparatus out. You may have home response to the scene or home response to the firehouse. Bottom line is you got to figure out a way to get the apparatus on the street quickly. Professional and ethical conduct when they arrive on the scene. It has nothing to do with a paycheck and everything to do with your attitude and how you approach the fire service. If you're a volunteer, you should have some sort of uniform, whether it be your Corporation t-shirt and something that matches, whether it be blue pants, black pants, or whatever, even if you're wearing shorts in the summertime, flip-flops, t-shirts like I'm wearing right now. Obviously, this is not what I wear at the firehouse. You need to look professional. That doesn't mean that you're getting a paycheck. Ethical. Show up on the scene and do the friggin' job. Don't downplay somebody's emergency just because you don't think it's an emergency in your mind. It is to them. So be ethical about the job. Don't do anything that's going to put you on the front page of the Washington Post or the New York Times or whatever. Make sure that you understand your job. Make sure that you're professional as you approach your job. Make sure that you're ethical. And then finally, be accountable for what you do and be transparent. A lot of people want to know, where is the money going to when in the volunteer corporation when they give donations. If you buy a piece of apparatus, make sure that they know this apparatus was purchased by donations from the fire department. Or, hey, we're having a carnival, we're making all this money is going to go to our building and grounds. Make sure that our fire department is up to par, that it's clean, it's functioning, paying the bills, buying new apparatus, buying new tools. Make sure that you're transparent with what you're doing with the money, especially in today's day and age. And then finally, be accountable for what you do. If you make a mistake on a call, own up to the mistake, okay? But the training should minimize those type of mistakes. Whether you're a career or volunteer or combination department, you should always be training so you can minimize those mistakes. But at the end of the day, be ethical, be transparent, be professional, and make sure that you're getting the apparatus out timely. Train for those high frequency, high risk calls, as well as put some effort into the low frequency, high risk calls. And make sure that at the end of the day, you are responding with well-trained, well-equipped firefighters, that they're doing the job. And at the end of the day, that'll help you to do better and suck less. Thanks for listening.